Hello, welcome back to the show. I've got a special episode for you today. It's about the Athena Wellness Podcast. And this is where I talk storytelling with wellness expert Kathy Robinson. The show today is brought to you thanks to the Structure Success video training. This helps you come up with a rough chapter outline for your life story project, which could be an autobiography, a memoir or biography or some other life story project. I'll have details about how you can download this and watch it at the end of the show. If you're brand new to Forever Young Autobiographies, this is the place where we learn how to write life stories for family and friends so that unique memories can live on. And I'd be so happy if you could follow, subscribe, like the show, share with a friend, or perhaps give it a review. So let's jump into the show. It was fantastic to be a guest on the Athena Wellness Podcast recently. I was there on the invitation of host Kathy Robinson. And Kathy's not just a host, she's also a coach, a wellness expert, and an author in her own right. She invited me on to 2 episodes of her podcast to talk about storytelling as a wellness practice and also how to organise your family stories. So today's show is a recap of some of the key questions that she asked me, and it's to encourage you to check out that wellness and inspiring podcast, the Athena Wellness Podcast. So I've got some questions here that I was asked. The first one, which was the difference between memoir and autobiography. Now this is confusing because these terms, they get used interchangeably. People are always wondering, what is the exact definition? Now, autobiography, let's start there. It captures a full life. So this could be details, events, feelings, lessons, struggles, and highlights about all periods of a life. So you might want to include too some background here. It could be about your parents' life or your grandparents' life, but essentially it's the story of your full life. So that's definition number 1. Number 2 is memoir. Now this targets a facet of life or a certain period of time. So it could be a childhood memoir, it could be to do with wartime memoir, a career, special part about your career times, or maybe travelling, adventures, etc. So that's memoir. And just to round out the definitions, biography. Now this is also a life account, but it's written by another person. So there's some definitions for you that came up on the podcast. A second question though that I was asked by Kathy, what are some elements of good storytelling? You want to pause before you get into a life story project. It's going to really help you by getting a few things clear so that you can then tell a good story. And I'm talking here about who you're writing for and why you're writing or why you're creating. You want to continue. Now there could be some really great whys. It could just simply be that you want to convey some basic information about what happened. Completely great why. You might second have like this desire to record it. You want to do it satisfying for your soul. Also a great why. A third one might be you want to create a lasting legacy, some kind of heirloom. So having these whys clear at the beginning before you start your story really helps inform that creative process. Now when you do get down to the creating process, you want to keep in mind your audience and being truthful for them, because they will spot you a mile off if you're trying to fluff over things and smooth them out. You do owe it to them to tell the truth where you can. And also a great story will incorporate guiding messages. We sometimes call these themes, and you can uncover these before your writing starts or before you're creating, or you can uncover them as you go. So there's some tips for good storytelling. A third question that Kathy had for me was, how might someone begin to organise and create a family story? Again, here you need to pause and do a little bit of planning before you jump headfirst into this project. And again, you'd want to know who you're creating this for, why, and possibly what. So that harks back to the definition. What sort of project are you doing? And it doesn't have to necessarily be written. It could be interviews, it could be photos, it could be videos. There's many different formats. So have that clear before you start creating a family story. Then get a little bit practical. The second step here is to have a bit of a schedule. When are you going to work on this? Really hold yourself accountable. Create a writing space or somewhere, a designated spot in your house that you will sit down, and that's where you're going to have all your materials and you can really just jump straight into it. And while you can, let family or friends know that you're doing this, and that's going to give you a little bit of accountability. You might even want to join up with a writing buddy, or you might want to connect with a coach like myself. So that accountability is going to help you with that momentum to really get into the project. And thirdly, once you've done that, you can start to brainstorm those memories. It could be your own, you could be interviewing someone else. And then be confident. This is a really important point. Be confident in your abilities to create this life story project. So there you go. That's a little bit about my podcast appearance, my guest appearance on the Athena Wellness Podcast with host Kathy Robinson, all about how to start writing a life story. So to recap today, we talked about the definitions of, we've got autobiography, memoir, biography, and then what are some good elements of storytelling and how to get organised to tell or create a family story. So I hope this has inspired you to listen to this health-focused podcast, the Athena Wellness Podcast, and I encourage you to go check it out. I will leave the links for the podcast over at my website. You can go to foreveryoungautographies.com/the Athena Wellness Podcast. I'll have more information about my guest appearances and, as I said, links so that you can actually go and listen to those 2 episodes. And while you're there at the website, or while you're here, leave me a comment. On the podcast episodes, I talked to Kathy about other things in my life, such as my writing practice and my wellness practice. And she asked for my tips on wellness. And I'm curious to know, what is your number 1 wellness tip? You can leave me a comment here today or over at the website. I'm really curious to know, what's your number 1 wellness practice? It doesn't have to be related to writing at all, but yeah, share that so we can all get some inspiration and ideas. At the top of the show, I mentioned the Structure Success video training. You can get that by going to foreveryoungautographies.com/structure success sign up. Look for the link down below. But essentially this training is just a short video training where I sit down with you and we come up with some key ideas, some key memories, and then we arrange these in a priority, I suppose, and then into chapter outlines so that you really have a good roadmap of what you're trying to create. So I highly recommend that you check that out. It's great whether you're planning to write, you're in the throes of writing, or you're editing and perhaps getting close to publishing. You really want to do a final check that you've got everything involved. So please take a look at that training. The link will be down below. Now, I will be back again soon with another topic, and until then, I'm really encouraging you to like, subscribe, follow the show, recommend it to a friend, and until then, happy writing.